The door is standing open tonight. The evening came in warm behind the sunset and has stayed warm, one of the last of its kind this year, and the crickets are going in the trees behind the house, the whole ringing field of them at once, so even and so constant that for long stretches I forget them entirely, and then find them again whenever I lift the pen. Every so often the draft through the door gets under the open ledger beside me, and the page lifts and settles again, a small, dry sound at my elbow. I lit the stove only long enough to boil the kettle, and it has gone out again, and that small transaction was the whole of the fire tonight. The kettle lost its spoonful at the spout seam while it worked, as it does, and the tea got made, and the room has settled back to the one lamp. I keep it at its smallest flame on the nights the reef lights are showing. A bright room puts the glass to work as a mirror, and I would rather have the window. The green is out tonight, and was out before I sat down. It started where it starts, at the foot of the west arm, in the lower left corner of the glass, and it has been working east across the mouth of the notch ever since, at the pace it keeps, a dim showing. The water inside the notch is dark, and means to stay that way, and the glow out past the mouth is closer to a stain on the sea than a light over it. The afternoon went to the summer's soundings. I take them in the notch every year in the easy season, a few each calm day through the warm months, and by the end of the summer there is a small stack of loose sheets at the back of the roll waiting to be brought into the ledger. Today I began bringing them in, the numbers going over into the fair columns in a better hand than the boat allows. The heading at the top of those pages says Notch Bay, because that is what I wrote in my first year here, and a ledger does not change its mind. But I have not called it that out loud in a long time. The notch does for everything but the paper. This was the first water I ever sounded here. So the checking sends me back to the beginning of the ledger, the new figure against the oldest one. And this afternoon, the two kept agreeing. 4 fathoms even off the mouth, the same 4 fathoms I took 15 years ago. The reading off the west arm came back a foot shy of its old figure, and the tide stood higher this summer on the day I took it, and a foot is what the tide was worth. There is lightning out over the open sea tonight. It was there when I sat down, and it has been there all evening. Far weather working the horizon at a distance that sends nothing here but the light of it. The flashes come at no interval I could set a watch by, twice in a minute and then nothing for 10, and each one shows in a different quarter of the sky, low, brief, finished before my eyes have properly arrived. What I catch is mostly the tail of each one, a paleness already letting itself out of the clouds. No sound has crossed all that water yet, and none is going to. The owl is calling tonight as well. One note, long and low, held longer than seems worth the breath, and let go without anything after it. And then nothing for a while, and then the note again. When it comes, the crickets nearest it leave off, so that the call arrives inside its own small pocket of quiet, and the ringing closes back over the place a moment later. The first call tonight was off south, well back in the trees. The one after that came from down along the shore path, where the wood runs low toward the water, and the last was up behind the spring, in the high wood inland. It has been an evening of long silences between, even for that bird. In the earliest pages this afternoon, alongside the depths I was checking, there is a narrow column ruled against the margin. I ruled it myself that first winter, to take down the hour the reef lit each night, and there are entries down it for a while in a hand more careful than mine has stayed. And then, partway down a page, it stops, and below that the margin is blank to the foot. I remember the keeping of it. That first winter I would get up from this chair to look at the water, and sit down, and get up to look again, most evenings, many times an evening. The column got its hour faithfully for as long as it got anything at all. This afternoon, it sat in the margin while I worked down the depths beside it. And when I had the figure I needed, I turned forward to the working page, and the early pages closed on the whole of it together, the sound bottom, and the stopped column, and that winter's careful hand. The green has come up to the half-rock and is going around it the way the tide does, and past it, the water is unlit the rest of the way to the east arm. A moth got in some while ago, as one generally does when the door stands open in this season. It spent its first minutes at the lamp, tapping around the glass, and then it left the light alone, which is not usual, and went instead to the open ledger, and it is sitting now on the dry margin of the page I stopped at, wings folded, as still as the numbers. I have let it be. It is doing the page no harm, and I have no use for that corner until tomorrow. The owl called again while I was writing that, from deep in the east wood this time, far enough back that the note arrived small. The note was the same note. It is always the same note, which is how I have known it this long. One bird with one thing to say, and 15 years of saying it. The crickets on that side went quiet for it, and took it up again after, and a flash stood in the northeast sky at nearly the same moment, sound off the land at my back, and light off the water in front of me, each done before I could properly attend to it. The evening carried on. The tide has turned since I sat down. I did not note the hour of it, but the water on the stones below the window has changed its sound. Longer intervals, a softer landing, the notch beginning its slow letting out. My tea has gone cold beside the ledger, which is how I generally discover what the hour has gotten up to. The rest of the loose sheets will have their turn tomorrow, or the day after, the bottom of the notch being in no hurry, and the two of us having an understanding. The pen wants filling, and will want it in the morning, too. The green is most of the way across the mouth now, coming up toward the foot of the east arm, thinner than it was at the start, the way a faint night ends. The lightning is still at it, out in its quarters, on its own count. The crickets have not paused since dusk, except where the owl has made them, and the owl will speak when it speaks. The moth has not moved from the margin. I find I have stopped writing between the flashes to watch for the next one, which is no way to finish a letter, and no reason to finish it either.